Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm your host, Jill Ferguson, and today I have a special guest with me, Helen Winslow Black. And you're coming to us from where in the United States right now?
Oh, right now, I'm in Colorado.
Okay.
I live in two places, Portland, Oregon, and Central Colorado. And I'm in Colorado right now. I'm looking out at a beautiful sunny day with the aspen leaves turning gold and the Mount Princeton in the distance. So,
Oh,
yep,
beautiful.
that's
Nice.
where I am. Mhm.
So you're the author of two books, the first of which is Seven Blackbirds, and it just had a re-release this year, right, in its second edition, which is
Yeah.
fabulous. If somebody's listening to us and they don't understand what that means, it means you sold usually enough copies with the first edition that it went into a different printing and a second edition. And I just think that's exciting, right? Because 91% of the books that get published never get there. Um,
Right.
and so that let's honor that. Take a moment to honor that.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
and one of the things that you do is you're an advocate for the prevention of domestic violence, which is what one of the subject matters of this book, right? Which is a novel.
Yes.
And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So that's another reason why you're making rounds on shows, I think.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your book. Where'd you get the idea for this book?
Well, as a creative artist, I don't believe there's any subject that's too difficult or sensitive to address through fiction. And I think what I really wanted to do was shatter some stereotypes about domestic violence, not by preaching or lecturing or haranguing or axe grinding, right? Because that's not art.
Yeah.
But by presenting a character in a set of circumstances, and then you enter into it with her imaginatively and you walk through it with her. And it kind of shifts the kaleidoscope a little bit and gives a fresh perspective. Because when people talk about domestic violence and say things like, well, why didn't she leave? Or how did she get herself into that situation?
Yeah.
That's not coming from the heart.
Yeah.
That's callous a little bit when you think about it. It's callous, and I think fiction puts you in the shoes of a character and lets you experience what that character is going through, that character's journey,
Mhm.
and hopefully gives the reader a fresh perspective, makes them think in a different way, or add new ways of thinking, and to think not just with the head but with the heart.
Mm. That's beautiful. I like that. And your book first came out in 2018, right?
2008.
Or 2000. Oh, 2008. I'm sorry.
2008. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When dinosaurs walked the earth. No, just kidding. Yes, 2008.
Yeah.
And of course, things were quite different then.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about the whole um, um, social service agency development over the decades, women's shelters didn't start popping up until the 70s. Hotlines, that figures in my book. Hotlines didn't even weren't even a thing until I think the mid 80s. I think the National Domestic Violence Hotline was initiated in 87, maybe. And there's just so much more. I wouldn't use the word normalize, Jill, but to make it okay to talk about these things, for people to reach out if they're stuck in that situation. I just lost my train of thought. I was talking about the course of the generations. Oh yeah, the book was in 2008, and so if you think about it, in 2008, I don't even think concepts like date rape or anything like that, even existed. And people would say, whatever happens to, it's your own fault. And I think things have changed. I look at the glass as half full. Okay. Things have changed and things are moving. And in this day and age, people are reaching out and speaking up about things that are difficult. And I think that's the only way to emotional health and healing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, your character's name is Kim, right?
Mhm.
And she, in the start of the book, she has a small child. It's, I think, 6 weeks old, right? Something around
Yes.
there. Yeah,
Mhm.
6 weeks old.
Right.
And it opens with a pretty explosive scene, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we are now in 2008. We weren't, but we're now on a case where people put trigger warnings on things and all
Right.
that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Do you feel like your book needs a trigger warning or no?
I think I think art is a trigger.
Oh, I
You know,
love that. Yeah.
art is a trigger, and it's a trigger in a good way, in a helpful way, in a
Mhm.
beneficial way, because the motivation for art and the motivation for literature, especially fiction, is it's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
It's coming from a place of we're all put onto the world, into the world
Mhm.
with certain gifts and talents, and we grow up and we learn to use those gifts and talents to help other people. My gift seems to be writing, and
Mhm.
so I want to use that to share and to heal. So I think it's funny when you bring that up, because I had a friend who was about my age. She was quite a bit younger than me, who started to read Seven Blackbirds. Actually, we did it with her. I did it with her book group, and she rushed up to me at school dismissal one day when we were all picking up our kids, and she was very pregnant. And she said, "I just started your book. Tell me it gets better." And I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes, hon. Don't worry. That's just the start. It gets better." But the reason I needed to begin like that was because, first of all, this is fiction, and everybody should know that it's fiction and not a newspaper article, right? This
Yeah.
is an imaginary world. And yes, you become immersed in it, but you also know that it's not reality around you. The reason I wanted to start like that was because I wanted to write a book about the afterward. What happens after she leaves?
Mhm.
How does she recover? How do things go? But in order for that to have any meaning, one needs to set the scene and show a context and
Yeah.
understand what she's coming from. And so I very consciously had her out of that house, I think by page 51,
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be an uplifting book about recovery. And I don't know. I guess I'm just a very direct and hard hitting person. I guess I feel like I'm a very little quietly subversive mouthy type, but maybe I'm not. But that scene, you have to have that scene at the beginning so you understand this is the way it is for this character right now.
Yeah. But I think that while you're saying, remember it's fiction and all that, the scene is very realistic. It's not, it wasn't something that came from your imagination that wouldn't have been real for someone experiencing the situation.
Yes, that's what one has to use such sensitivity.
Yeah.
When you're writing about things like this, all the time in the forefront of my mind, and even in my other book that deals with some other difficult topics. Other
Yeah.
tragic things happen to Kim later in life.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, is the other book about her too?
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it's
I
about
didn't
her
know
later in
that.
life, which is really cool. They are standalone books, but they're
Mhm.
complementary.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and oh, what was I just saying?
You were
Ooh.
Oh, before that? you, you were talking about how you wanted to leave
Yeah,
people with hope, and then we were
yeah,
talking about,
yeah,
yeah, how,
yeah.
yeah. So
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
in 2005, my first novel came out, and it was called "Sometimes Art Can't Save You," and
Mm,
it dealt with a 16-year-old protagonist who was an artist, who was living in a situation where there was some violence
mhm,
and against her and her mother, by the
mhm.
mother's boyfriend, and she was self-injuring as a way to,
Yeah.
using a negative coping mechanism, right? And I did my whole national book tour on that topic, on
Mhm, mhm.
self-injury, and because there was a bunch of statistics that had come out the book came out at the end of 2005, and the book tour was in 2006 and 2007. So it's not that far from when your book first came out, right? And there were so many people at that time that the interviewers were great, and they wanted to talk about the things, right? All the major things that were going on and why I'd write this and stuff. But the family members that I have, or on my husband's side of the family, were like, why would you write a book like this? Did you get that kind of response from anybody?
So now we're tying this back to I remember what we were talking about, what you were asking me before.
Yeah.
When somebody says that's so realistic,
yeah,
that's in a way, that's a kind of a backhanded compliment in a way. It's a compliment in a way, because it's got to be real. If it's not real, the reader will not become engaged with the material. So there's always that question. This character is a collection of experience, much of which is not my own. But that point of that first paragraph really puts you into her mind, and she goes through shock and denial, and then oh my gosh, I'm holding the baby while he does that. And we all of us women who've lived a few decades and have been around the block once or twice, we've been through experiences where we were maybe kind of assaulted or not treated right or whatever. And that's absolutely the way that somebody responds to an action of abuse, because it's traumatizing. There's the shock and there's the denial, and I can write about that because I've had experiences like that in my past, including one on a subway in Europe when nobody else was around and some teenage kids were like, anyways, that's, and then as a writer, you take all that and you make it what you need it to be for, and you did that with your book. You made it what you needed to be, because certain things have to happen at certain times and in certain ways. You made that how it needed to be to actually present the appropriate portrait to your reader. But people are always, nobody has really come up and said, oh my gosh, why did you write about that? But there's this whole, there's a book called How to Suppress Women's Writing. Do you know it? It's old. Okay, it's 1981. But it's like, she wrote it, but she had help, or she wrote it, but oh my gosh, look what she wrote about. I don't think there's any topic off limits, and people are going to have all different kinds of reactions to it. Jill, you saw that, and I do see that, yeah.
Well, and I saw that, but on the flip side of that reaction, right, is the people that, when I did my book tour and I was on television and people saw me, and then they'd come to the bookstores at night. And one of the women came up to me, and she came the first night to the bookstore after seeing me on TV, and she admitted to me that she had been a self-injurer since her teen years. And she told me the circumstances about that. And it turned out that she was a night nurse. And so she had the night off, and she ended up reading my entire book that night, and then came back to the book signing I did the second night and gave me a 6-page handwritten letter on legal paper about how my book affected her, and how did I know that she has actually said the things my character said and made the same rationale, and how much this book gave her hope. And it touched her so much, and we've since then become good friends. And those are the moments, right, that make it for a writer.
Every book is a candle.
Yeah.
When you light the candle, and it's a fire starter. You start something, and so I've had that experience too. I've had the 6-page letters, which are so dear to me. I also had somebody who read Seven Blackbirds in one sitting. She must be a really fast reader, but she spent all night. I'll just say she was in the emergency room all night
Oh,
with
yeah.
with the child, and she read that book, and she left her marriage, and she said, "You helped me do that."
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you don't know what kind of flowers are going to sprout
Yeah,
from the seeds that you're
absolutely.
planting. Because gosh, I had somebody who came up to me and said, that Seven Blackbirds, about Seven Blackbirds, you you inspired me with this book. This book inspired me to quit my job, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm trying to figure out what does that, because it doesn't
Yeah.
have any, but you never know what
Did the
how
person become an advocate
well
or
she
change
I
careers?
can't remember what she,
Yeah.
I no longer remember what she did and then what she did after that, but it just somehow made her because in my book, the Kim is connecting with her soul and regaining her voice.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you regain your life purpose.
Yeah.
And so, like, somehow that kind of got through to this gal, and she was like, there's something wrong in some department of my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to change it. And so you never know. But that's such a beautiful story about the woman who came back to your book
Oh,
signing.
thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
so beautiful. That's what we try to do
Yeah.
as writers. Yeah.
So I'm curious about the dedication in your book because you dedicated it to your father, your husband, and your sons.
Yes.
You want to say
I,
why?
yes, I will. I will. I was concerned that it not be, and of course I didn't write it that way at all. I was concerned that people might think I was an author who hated men. And the next book, Songs My Mother Taught Me, I dedicated to my mother, her mother, and my daughters. So I've got three sons and two daughters. They're 21 to 31 years old, and in Seven Blackbirds, the father does play a role in her meditations and in her thinking. She misses her father. Her father has passed away at the time this breakup of her marriage happens, and she really misses her father's presence in her life, and so she has some dreams and memories about him. So I thought that was nice.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Are you planning a third book in the series, or is it okay?
I think it's going to be a series. Yes, I'm going to write a book about the daughter
Okay.
in Songs My Mother Taught Me. So in Seven Blackbirds, Kim is a 20-something young law student, and she's been married several years. And then her marriage falls apart when she has the first baby, which, by the way, was planned. So
Mhm.
go figure. And then how she extricates herself from that situation and places herself on a new footing. Now, I left that book open ended because I didn't want a fairy tale ending. I wanted this to be just about a woman who who gets on a new footing. And then Songs My Mother Taught Me picks up again with Kim a little bit later when she remarries and has a family, and this time makes a good choice in a husband. And it goes through 15 years. A tragedy does strike again, and she has to deal with that. And the mother and the sister and her own daughter, because she has some more children, figure large in this book. The women in the family really help her through the sad thing that happens to her after a number of years. And so I dedicated that book to my mother, her mother, and my daughters. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. How I'm going to dedicate the third book? I'll have to dedicate it to my son's cat. but it will be about the next generation. It'll be about her daughter, and I think she's going to become an opera singer because, Jill, I would love to get immersed in the world of opera and get backstage and talk to opera singers because I'm an opera fanatic.
I can hook you up for some of those. I used to
Oh,
work at
good.
a conservatory of music in San Francisco.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah,
Oh,
I have
wow.
former students
You're
who
impressive.
are
Yes. Cool.
in that
Thanks.
world. So yeah, we'll talk
Yeah.
about that off of this.
Yeah.
So your bio says you said you went to law school. You're clearly an author and an artist. but it says you're an advocate for the prevention of domestic violence. What exactly does that mean?
What that means is that my skill and talent is writing. And so
Okay.
through my artistic output, that's my contribution because, I'm not a domestic violence program coordinator. I'm not a psychologist or a
Mhm.
counselor. Through my artistic output to do my part to raise awareness and get people to think about these topics.
Mhm.
And so I'm doing it. I'm doing it through writing, and of course, when I have interviews, of course, I speak to the issue directly.
Mhm.
And I think anytime you have a conversation, like we talked about books,
Mhm.
you're lighting a little fire,
Yeah.
and it's going to light up some corner of somebody's head, and perhaps lead to healing.
So what do you wish people knew more about the topic?
Um, I wish people knew that it's not a woman's fault if she's a recipient of abuse. I think that we were talking about the decades, the
Mhm.
progress of the decades. I think that's less and less, but I think it's still there.
Mhm.
It's not a woman's fault.
And let's
Domestic
let's take
violence.
a little
Yeah.
stop here and say that statistically, it is the if it's a male female relationship,
Mhm.
it is statistically more often the abuser is male, but there are cases where it's the other way around. But so
Absolutely.
we're just talking in the
Yes,
mass
I'm just
quantity.
saying woman
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
like, whatever, but
yeah,
absolutely, we do not want to marginalize
yeah,
any set of people who are recipients of abuse. Unfortunately, uh, same-sex abuse is
yes,
rising, and
yeah,
that is because it's becoming more okay.
yeah,
This is what a professional told me. That was her anecdotal experience. It's the rise in statistics for reports of
yeah,
same-sex abuse are going up because it's more okay to reach out. So that's
yeah.
good. But yes, it has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with character, temperament, personality, upbringing, and everything. Yes. But what I wish is that people would understand that um, victims, and we need to find a new word for that,
Yeah.
of domestic violence, it's not their fault. It has nothing to do with age, IQ, um, socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
It's all about um, you're wounded inside and somebody got their hooks in you, and or women especially are kind of culturally conditioned to minimize, to think it's their fault, to think they need to fix it because it's in the home. It's their responsibility to fix the situation. Um, and so they might stay in the situation. So yeah, it's not the victim's fault. Open your
Well,
mind to that, and your heart. Yeah.
so I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate right now.
Okay. Yeah. Do. Yes.
So
And that's the
yeah,
conversation, right? That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
conversation.
So
Yeah.
I I agree that it's not the woman's fault for the abuse.
Mhm.
Um, where some people would find fault, I think, is when like, and I will give you a very specific example. As there
Okay.
is a woman in the neighborhood I live in that is being abused, and every time her neighbors hear her start screaming and crying and hear him hit her, they call the police. Every time the police show up, she said she's not doing anything about it, and the police leave because there's nothing they can do, really. If she's not willing to engage in that. And she's not the one calling the police, right? It's the neighbors that are calling. And so the neighbors around her, she's not on my street, but she's by, some of my friends, um, tend to find fault and blame her for not,
Right.
right? And that's a very common scenario,
Yes.
right? That happens.
They're
Wait,
they're
yeah, why?
frustrated with her.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and what? And they're angry at the
They're
male in the
right.
household, and
Well, absolutely. They are
Yeah.
frustrated. They're frustrated with her, and they're angry at her husband.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: all you can do, the only person you can control is yourself.
Yep.
The only person you're in charge of is yourself. And if you're doing the right thing, if you by your own lights, and hopefully you're coming from a good place.
Mhm.
If you do the right thing, that's all you can do. And you don't know, but that at a certain time, place, and manner, your action might sink in and have meaning for the other person.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about what you do, it's about the timing. And the statistics say, women will go to a shelter and then go back home, and they'll do it, I think, 5 to 7 times before they will actually get up the gumption, or to actually leave for good. And I think it's a very difficult situation that your neighbors are in, but it's an even more difficult situation that she is in, and she is my concern. And I could care less. I mean,
Yeah.
from a certain perspective, you can say I could care less what they think, and but just as long as they keep doing it,
Yeah.
and they can't lecture or browbeat this woman. It's like planting seeds,
Yeah.
and you don't know when they're going to sprout. But at a
And the
certain
interesting
point,
thing is
hopefully.
they have no engagement with her otherwise, because she
Ah,
doesn't
well, of course
talk to
she does.
anybody in the
Right? She
neighborhood, right?
withdraws.
She
She
doesn't. Yeah,
withdraws.
absolutely.
When people are in an abusive
Yeah.
situation, they circle the wagons, they pull
Yeah.
up the drawbridge, they
Yeah.
perpetuate the psychological isolation that the abuser is trying to keep going, because that's the only way that he can keep doing it.
Yeah.
At some point, hopefully, she'll punch her hand through that wall and breathe the fresh air. We can only
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why, like, there's no children involved in this household, but there's a lot of reasons why somebody doesn't leave that kind of situation, right? It's not cut and dry. It can be very complex.
It is complicated. Now, of course, children are factor a lot into the situation, if there are children. Financial dependence. What will my friends think if I get a divorce, if I leave? There's still a stigma about that. Even in this day and age, there's a stigma. Financial dependence. I already mentioned that, but the most important one, I think, Jill, is that depending on how long the situation goes on, the woman just gets beaten down.
Yeah.
She has her entire her soul crushed.
Mhm.
An abuser is a parasite. They latch on to you for their own purposes. There's something wrong with this gentleman that
Mhm.
is the neighbor on the other street. There's something wrong with him, and he's using her as an object of utility to take out his own frustrations and anxieties on. And that's not a relationship. That's not
No.
love.
Yeah.
And as soon as she realizes that, maybe her thinking will start to change. But you're so beaten down, it takes a lot of strength and energy to actually step over that threshold where you say, okay, enough is enough, I'm going to do something. And we need to have compassion for that. Yeah.
Do you know the statistics around that? Like, how often how long? I know we did the one about going to the shelter, but
The
how many?
shelter.
Yeah. Do you have other statistics
That's
around
the
that?
only statistic. That's the only statistic that I have. Um, um, but I think you can kind of analogize.
Yeah.
Analogize. Women will tend to minimize, or people who are receiving abuse will tend to minimize it. And so, in a way, enough has to happen over a period of time that they kind of come to see that, oh, no, this is happening. It is real, and I need help.
Well, and I think when we're younger, right, and more immature, emotionally immature, we
Mhm.
think, oh, if anybody ever did XYZ to me, I'd do this, right?
Right.
And then if you're ever in a situation, whatever situation you thought you knew how you'd handle it, and it doesn't always work that way. right?
Right. It all goes out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. That's just youth. Yeah.
yeah, and we justify things to ourselves, or oh, it
Mhm.
was a mistake, or it was this, or and I think that which is why so often when we're throwing shade at other people for behaving certain ways, it's like,
Mhm.
well, you're not in their shoes and you don't exactly know what you do.
Right. Right. Empathy is important.
Yeah,
Empathy is important, and there are a lot of things that keep people from empathizing.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah. Um, so you on your website it said you moved to Seattle in 1996, which was the same year I moved to Seattle.
Oh, yeah. I lived in Ballard. Where did you live?
In Bellevue
Bellevue.
at that time. Yeah. How long
Yeah.
did you live there?
I lived there very briefly. I've spent most of my time in Oregon,
Okay.
in Portland,
Yeah.
and when we made the move, my husband, reassured me that he told me the number of days of sunlight in Seattle and in Portland. He said, "This is going to be better."
Yeah. Well, and that's really a thing, right? It
Yes.
affects people's mental health like crazy,
Yes.
not
Right.
having enough vitamin D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's also they figured out that vitamin D is a factor in the lack of vitamin D is a factor in many illnesses, including breast cancer. And there's lots of people in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
There's a big breast cancer situation in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I also have a theory that's my own personal theory that grunge music could not have been created anywhere else because it's the perfect kind of climate, the grayness, just the
Yes.
some of the mentality in the
Right.
area. Yeah, and it's like you couldn't have done grunge music in sunny California and had it come out.
Right. The other side of that coin, Jill, is that in that kind of a climate, that rainy climate, people tend to read books more.
Yeah, they do.
They're sitting in coffee shops with their latte and reading books.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of that coin.
I was in Seattle on my first book tour, so was there. Portland too, because
Yeah.
they read a lot of books in Portland, even though it is sunny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you like living there, or did you need more sunshine?
It was a job situation. It was
Okay.
an employment situation
Yeah.
that prompted the move. It wasn't like I can't take it anymore. I have SAD, or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Affective
Seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So what? Oh, your title of your book, Seven Blackbirds, came from what?
Oh, the title.
Yeah.
Good that you bring that up. Yeah. The Seven Blackbirds. Seven Blackbirds is because it represents something very important. That's why I say that. Seven Blackbirds is a Mother Goose, a nursery rhyme. It's a counting rhyme. 7 blackbirds in a tree, count them and see what they be. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl, 4 for a boy, 5 for silver, 6 for gold, 7 for a secret never to be told. Domestic violence thrives in an atmosphere of secrecy, and only when secrets are revealed are you on the path to recovery and healing. That nursery rhyme is one that Kim reads to her baby and her little toddler over and over again. And although she had reached out pretty early on in the book to a hotline and spoken to a counselor and kind of started to understand, oh my word, I really need to make some changes here. Even though she'd already done that and started on the road and filed for divorce, there were still some instances of abuse that she had not brought up and out. And so my shtick is that emotional trauma can be healed. First, it has to be acknowledged, and you have to acknowledge all of it. And so when she reads that nursery rhyme, and that last line, 7 for a secret never to be told, really hits her. And this is where, Jill, that conversation about the timing of things comes in. It hits her, and she realizes she needs to bring that up. She needs to acknowledge it, and she needs to share it. And she shares it with her best friend at that point, who says, you got to tell your lawyer about this, right? So she starts on that process. But that's a turning point for her. It's the transformative moment when this character brings everything up and out, and only then can she really, something was holding her back, you see. Only then can she really start moving forward and resolving the legal process and the recovery process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we mentioned a little bit about legal stuff around this, but we kind of
Mhm.
just hit on it. What do you think is needed still in as far as like laws around this go or advocacy?
I think that by this stage of the game
Mhm.
in 2025, so many of the tools and processes are in place that have evolved over time as the legal system has understood that a divorce under with circumstances of abuse has some unique circumstances around it that do need to be addressed. And I would, okay, I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll turn it
Your
around.
turn now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my turn. Um, I'll turn it around and say, how good should the legal system be? Because an abused woman who's finally decided to take steps to change her situation, it's not going to be good if she looks at the legal system as a magic bullet or a knight in a white cape. You know, there's a knight in a white cape who's going to make everything better, because that perpetuates the mindset that not got her where she was, but the old mindset.
Mhm.
So, best thing a woman can do is to find the warrior lawyer and be fully engaged in the process. Not like, oh, fix me, fix everything, you do everything, but to be really engaged with them, relying on their professional expertise to achieve the best outcome for herself and her children. And it's never going to look exactly like she hoped and envisioned, but it's going to be a step forward.
Yeah. I love that you added that part, that it's never going to be what you look like, because I have a friend who went through this a number of years ago, 18, 19 years ago.
Mhm.
And she was not a US citizen, but she was living in the United States and married to a US citizen. And um, for her, as her last resort, is she took the baby and left,
Oh, wow.
because she's from a country where there's not extradition.
Okay.
And she tried to go through, like, the divorce happened, but she still got partial custody of the child. And the child started getting more and more upset every time it had to go see its dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was an incident that happened that the police from our town and the next town, the incident happened in the next town. And they said, well,
Mhm.
you live in the other town, so tell them. And that
Yeah.
town said, no, it happened in their town, so
Right,
nothing
right.
happened.
Right.
So she ended up feeling like she had no choice but to take off,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that wasn't what she had hoped the end of all of that
Right.
looked like, right?
The,
But
this is like,
yeah,
you know, the legal system, these are all structures.
yeah,
They're structures, and they're bureaucratic, and they're based on
yeah,
certain ideas and stuff like that, but they're structures. And they're not perfect because the
yeah,
humans that made them aren't perfect. And, you know, real empowerment is just getting in there and using that structure the best you can,
yeah,
putting your best efforts forward, and knowing. And it's hard because with children, now I'm not addressing her particular
yeah.
situation to say this.
Mhm.
um, it, both parents are going to be dissatisfied
Yeah,
with the circumstances surrounding the children and visitation and joint
yeah,
custody and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing to be done because you can't split the baby, and the kids' welfare is
yeah,
most important. And you're going to have to. It's not, life isn't perfect. Life has got rough
yeah.
edges, and you're going to have to work. Just step forward every day, and the kids are going to get older. And as long as you are honest with them and don't, you know, badmouth the other parent and all that kind of stuff that you're not
Mhm.
supposed to do, the children, they will make it through. And it's just devastating to hear about somebody who has a child and joint custody was awarded, which is like,
Well,
hello,
it was
pick up the clue phone.
yeah. In this
And then
case,
what do you
it
do?
originally wasn't. It was he
Okay.
had relinquished his rights voluntarily, but then found out if he took rights, then or if he got rights, he paid less in child support.
I was going to finish that
Yeah.
sentence for you.
Yeah, you knew
I
it,
was going
right?
to finish
It
that
was,
sentence for you.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
so then it's like, no, I deserve rights, and yeah.
That's
Um,
really,
so
that's
anyway,
sad.
I've been through it, and I got investigated by the county prosecutor's office because they were like, "Did you know she was going to do this?" and all that other stuff.
Right.
But yeah, and it's just like sometimes you, in order to protect yourself, you need to
Mhm.
do what you need to do, right?
And
And I'm not
and your
advocating
children.
for that. I'm just
Right,
saying,
absolutely not.
safe.
But you, as a mother, motherhood is the necessity of invention, right?
Yeah,
To turn that phrase around. And as a mother, you're motivated. You're motivated by the best interests of your child,
yeah,
And and unfortunately, it's very often the case that fathers are less motivated by the best interests of the child and view it more as this is a business transaction, or this is how I can continue to fight with my ex-wife or gain control. But if you know that you're acting in the best interest of your child and you try to do it properly through the
yeah,
appropriate channels, then you can feel okay about yourself.
yeah, yeah. So I ask everybody that comes on this show if they have a favorite quote or song or whatever about love or a bit of advice about love.
Mhm.
What would
Right.
yours be if you had to pick
Well,
any of that?
yeah, yeah. The advice I would give it. I'm pretending I'm giving advice to a younger person, right?
Okay.
Teenager or 20 something. And and I would say that love is about reciprocity. It's not about using somebody for your own purposes. It's about joining with someone out of desire, not need, out of desire, not need, to share adventures together in the future. Anytime that it's not love if you are being with someone or clinging to someone out of need. That's not freedom. That's not
Mhm.
freedom for your soul. You can't be your whole self. It has to be out of desire. And then it's reciprocity and you're on equal footing. And it's something that I think as a young person, you just need to learn that as you pace forward through your life. Some people seem to be born with that knowledge, and others need to have it shown to them.
Yeah. I love that, and I'm always a big advocate of you. It's hard to love other people if you don't love yourself too, right?
Your relationship is first and foremost with yourself, right?
Yep.
You can't have a relationship with somebody else unless you have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today and for being on my show. I enjoyed it.
Jill, I hope it doesn't sound funny to say it was fun because it's a difficult, sensitive topic. But it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. It was a great pleasure to hang out with you and spend some time
Thank
and
you. And,
talk. I do
and
appreciate it.
I'm going to put the helpline or the hotline information at
Oh
the
yeah,
end of the show. So it will be there for
that'd be great.
everybody. Yeah.
There's not
End of
only
the
a
night.
national there's not only a national hotline, but every place now has one. I'm in rural Colorado. We got a hotline out here, so
Nice.
people can just Google it. But it's
Yeah.
great if you put that information out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do that. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good day.
you. Okay,
Okay.
bye bye.
Bye. Bye.